We're mic'd up with Montgomery.
Welcome to Real Talk, where real estate meets real conversations.
I'm Sean Harvey.
I'm Brittany Newhart, and we have Jamie Olson here with us.
Hello.
Welcome, Jamie.
Hi.
We're so glad you're here today to join us.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I am so excited. This is my first official podcast.
Really? Oh, you've been on the radio, I guess.
Yeah.
I was like, you've done this before. But
No, I do the
Radio
radio.
I've heard very good things about your
Yes.
radio show.
Oh,
Yes.
good. So I do think it's interesting because Huron is a small town.
Mhm.
I mean, to me, it's a giant town, but
Yeah.
Huron's a small town, and so small radio station. And you would think, oh my gosh, who listens to the radio anymore? Like AM, FM. Tons of people do.
It's a lot.
I have so many people who say, oh, I heard you on the radio. Oh, and I'm literally on there for like at most 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny?
And
It catches perfectly at the right time.
Yeah. And like my husband will purposely try to listen and he misses it all the time.
Isn't that funny?
What day and time are you supposed to be on roughly?
Tuesday around like 8:22
Sure.
Okay.
ish.
I'm really
Sure.
bad about listening to the radio just in the office because it's like I just need
No.
my silence.
I
Yeah.
cannot. My office is dead silent.
Oh, yeah?
Even when we
That's
worked
nice.
from home during COVID, dead silence.
Oh, see, I don't know if I have ADHD or what, but like I have to listen to something while I
Yeah.
do something because
I do that
Why?
sometimes, but it seems like if I'm listening to the radio and my phone rings and it doesn't pick back up on the speaker or something, I don't know the difference. I won't notice it until hours later when I see the speaker is still on or whatever.
oh yeah,
Yeah, I drove to Rapid City one time with no radio, nothing on.
I can drive
can
in
do that.
silence.
Yeah.
I can do that because especially before I pick up the kids, like this 5 minutes of peace across
It's-
town.
I used to be, when I was younger, my grandfather used to have his radio on just enough so you could almost hear the words, but you really couldn't understand what was going on. And that always drove me nuts. And now I am that person.
Oh, you've turned into your
I-
grandfather.
I can't
Yeah.
have it do like the mumbly sounds where I'm like, yeah, you either have to have it to where you hear the words or not.
Or not at all.
Yeah.
But you know what's really funny about this, you guys? So when I'm home, like making supper or just farting around the house, I have got to have the TV on.
Oh, that's
Oh
fun.
yeah,
Like, there's no compromise. It's got to be on.
we have kids.
Just the
and I don't know.
vibe of it, or
I don't know.
Yeah.
I just realized that about myself. I cannot focus with sound, but when I'm not focusing, I gotta have sound.
oh, yeah.
We usually have like iPads rolling, my phone's ringing, Randy's having a conversation, the TV's going. So
Yeah.
like everything should just go off.
Yeah, if I get too many things, my mind just
Yeah.
almost shuts down. I just can't.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
No. So
Love it.
why would we have you here? That's my question.
Gosh, I think it's because of my long eyelashes and yeah, no,
Yes,
cheesing.
that's fine.
Okay, so I am a mortgage loan officer with American Bank and Trust. I am going to celebrate my 12-year anniversary in March. So
Oh,
and
congratulations.
March is coming up. Maybe by the time this airs, it will be March.
Just about.
No.
Yeah. Just
Something like that.
Yeah,
Anyway, pretty darn close.
Yeah.
It's
We're
gonna
close. We
feel
can
like
celebrate.
March weather-wise. And so I'm here just to kind of talk about some of the things that I do. So you guys talk every week about the real estate, the selling and buying side of it. I'm where people find the funds. So obviously when people need to borrow funds, I'm very involved. And then sometimes you guys have cash borrowers, and then you'll need to reach out to a lender just because they need to have someone from the bank saying, hey, yeah, these people truly do have money.
Yes. Yeah.
We don't get that a whole lot because obviously just cash borrowers, that you don't see them as often, but I'm involved on the lending side. Okay, boy. And then we just opened this huge can of worms right now, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so much to talk about on the lending side. But with American Bank and Trust, we've got branches. I'm not sure how many branches we've got, but they span from Pierre over to Worthington, Minnesota. We have a branch in Lisbon, North Dakota, and then all the way down to Sioux Falls. And we have several branches in Sioux Falls and T. We just got a new one in T. So
And this has grown super fast, it feels like.
Yeah.
it truly has, yes. So when I started, it was just a few branches in East Central South Dakota, and now it wasn't too long after I started that we added Sioux Falls, and then that changed our whole world as far as, well, number one, there's just a completely different market down there. And then number two, we so on the bank side, we have to do all kinds of reporting to make sure that we're treating everybody equally and fairly. So that brought on a lot of things with HMDA, which literally is a 4-letter word in the banking industry as far as like reporting things. So we yes, lots of things changed. Now, when we added Sioux Falls, we were able to add so many products, and which is great because you need those to be competitive in the Sioux Falls market. Well, it was just kind of like icing on the cake for smaller markets like Huron. So a lot of things that people don't really realize is that the thing that comes first is the investor. So where the money's coming from, and then that investor is going to have different types of loan programs. So people will ask me all the time, and literally almost every day, I want a first time home buyer's loan. Okay, well, almost every single investor has a program for first time home buyers, but they're all different. So I always ask people, what benefit are you looking for with first time home buyers? Because they, a lot of times they don't know. They just heard like,
It's good. It's good
yeah,
to have.
they're
I gotta
great.
have it.
My
Yeah.
my grandfather told me about this, or my best friend just bought a home and she did first time home buyers. Well, that there are some great benefits for first time home buyers, but if you don't qualify for South Dakota housing, then you don't qualify for certain things. But if you do qualify for South Dakota housing, all of those same benefits are available with a repeat home buyer program. So I'm kind of getting sidetracked here, but the investor is kind of the most important part. And we have a myriad of different investors. We have investors who will do jumbo loans. We have investors who will do VA loans, FHA, rural development. And then we also partner with South Dakota Housing, and they offer those really great programs where they can help with your down payment and closing costs, and we can kind of build that into your loan program. So there's just so many different things as far as investors are concerned. And I know that before we added Sioux Falls, we pretty much worked with 2 investors. We worked with Federal Home Loan Bank and South Dakota Housing.
How many is there then, like for comparison?
Okay,
Like
so if I
hundreds?
were to guess, I would say that we have probably 10 different investors now.
Okay.
Wow.
And then
So it grew a
all-
lot.
a lot,
Yeah.
yes. And so there's so many things that we look for on our side. So people will tell me when they apply, I'm applying for this. I'm applying for first time home buyer. Okay, well, they might not realize it, but they actually are going to get a better rate with less money down and a lower payment if they went FHA. So people will submit an application. They'll tell us what they're looking for, and that's terrific information to have. But it's up to us, it's our job to find the loan program that's going to work best for the borrower.
So a borrower comes to you, they say, okay, I want to buy a house. You start kind of the education process with them. Of,
Yes.
like, let's kind of look at your stuff, look at your income, look at your expenses. This is what works. And then that's kind of the best time then for them to come see us after
Correct.
they kind of figure it out.
Yes. So the very first thing that we need to get from people is a mortgage application. And even if they already bank with American Bank and Trust, we have information stored for them in our system, but we need a little bit more than that. So the information that's stored in our system, that's just going to be your basic stuff. Name, social security number, date of birth, your current address. We need to collect employment history, income history, like that income stuff, that's not saved anywhere in our system,
Right.
nor should it be.
Yeah.
you know,
I think we once in a while have our tax documents like, oh yeah, you got last year's taxes.
Yeah,
Like, here's
but,
this year's.
that's not even stored within our system.
Yeah.
You have to
It's like
speak to
old
a,
emails.
yeah,
Like,
and
I
you
still
have to
have
speak
this.
to a loan officer to actually get that
Yeah.
information. So even though they bank with us, we still need to get some information from them. And employment history and income, those are super, super important. Now, once we have the application with all of that information in it, then that's when we go to the borrower and tell them, this is what loan program is going to work best for you. This is what your monthly payments are going to be. This is how much you can afford. And then that kind of starts the discussion of, we don't just tell them, this is the loan program you're stuck with.
Yeah.
They might say, well, I actually have, my parents have been saving and they want to gift me X amount of dollars for a down payment when I buy my first house. Well, that might change things too, and that might get you into a different loan program. So that's kind of where the dialogue starts on the loan program side of things. Once we get all the numbers situated, that's when we would like the borrower to go visit with a realtor, not the other way around.
Yeah. A lot of the times they see a house. I want that house. I think I can afford that. They run it through a little mortgage calculator and they say that's a good price and they go in.
Yeah.
And what we do on the back end is we're like, okay, well let's go talk to somebody about your mortgage.
Yes.
And we don't know. We oftentimes they'll say, well, what's the best loan program out there? And we can say, okay, well these are the benefits. But honestly, that is in my opinion, very situational. So
Yes.
get your mortgage application submitted, and then you, as the mortgage professional, will guide them down that path
Right.
and help them decide what is the best mortgage for them.
Exactly. So yes, like you guys are going to have some knowledge of how the industry works on the lending side. You've been involved with it. Like you're not unfamiliar, but you're not going to know all the ins and outs.
No. And we tell people that too. Like, if you say you're a friend, you come to us, we don't know your financial actual documents.
Right.
We see, oh hey, you got approved for $250,000.
Yep.
Great. That's about the extent of your money talk that we kind of know, which
Right.
is good. So you can kind of go with your friend if you're worried, like, oh, I don't want my friend to know every single little thing about my
Yep.
money.
Yep.
That's just fine.
So
It
and
is.
that's always really interesting too. It's such a fine line because so I've lived in Huron 18 years, which seems crazy.
Yeah.
But we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
I've lived in Huron for 18 years. I know a lot of people. Like you become familiar with people, you make friends, you're on committees with different people. And so like Sean and we've been on several different committees together for years. And so he goes to get a mortgage and he knows, oh boy, Jamie's gonna see all of my income information. You're right. I am gonna see it. I'm gonna know it. And you know what? It's gonna stick with me for about 3 seconds.
Yeah. Because you have 50 other people that you're going to see too.
I see people's stuff all the time. You're not going to scare me. There's just not going to be a reaction.
Well, and not one person is ever going to be the same.
No.
Like everybody
No.
has different circumstances in their life.
Yep.
Different things happen. Sometimes it's their choices. Sometimes it was stuff that came to them and happened. So it's like, no judgment.
And
Things happen.
there is never, ever, ever any personal sensitive information shared, repeated, nothing.
Right.
You can't.
Like my job and my career, my reputation, everything depends on me not sharing that
Mhm.
information. And I won't. I haven't. I will not.
No, because that's
Same
like
on ours.
the one time you do it.
Yep. And it's
Downhill career. Yep.
It's always so funny because my husband will come home from work and oh boy, we did this, we bored this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm looking at him and I'm sort of listening. I don't care.
Yeah.
And I
Yep.
don't know, and then
None.
but also like I can't come back to him with, oh yeah, Brittany submitted a loan application today. They're going to buy a $400,000 house, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I can't talk about
Right.
that.
Yeah. It is the hard line because like it's stuff that you want to go home and you kind of want to vent about, but you can't. But
No.
you're like, oh, I just had a hard day. Oh, what happened? hard stuff.
Yeah,
And it's
hard
that's
stuff.
it. Like, that's all I got for you.
And my husband, bless his heart, he just doesn't understand.
Yeah.
You know, like
He's like, just tell me this one time.
he's like, you sit in an office, it's you sit there all day, and it's like, no,
Yeah.
that's not.
Oh
it.
yeah. When my husband's out building whatever, this garage in the cold, he's like, oh, you're so lucky you just get there. I'm like, you don't know
You have
what we
no
do, but I
idea.
also can't tell you everything.
Yeah.
Just like
Yeah.
with yourself.
And a lot of it is so incredibly rewarding, but some of it is just not fun. You
Yeah.
know, like sometimes you have to deny people,
Mhm.
or like they can't afford the house that they want, or something goes crazy haywire, stolen identity, there's debt that they didn't know of, that things
Yeah.
happen. Sometimes you have to deliver terrible news, and that is
It
terrible.
weighs on. I mean, it weighs on every one of us. I
Oh,
think
for
all
sure,
of us take it probably more personal than we should.
For sure.
But it weighs on us when we have to give somebody that bad news, and then we're like,
Absolutely.
"Oh, that made my day so rough."
Yes.
Exactly. Because you know it's hard on you.
Then
but
you
it's
have to
harder
sleep
on
it off.
Yes.
You wake up the next morning, you're like, "Okay, we did whatever we could. We just have to move past it."
Yes.
Yeah.
And whenever problems arise, we always have people who will say, okay, I'll get you my bank statement. Do you need anything else? Well, we need the bank statement. And then depending on what's on that bank statement, then there might be something, but we're not going to know until we get the bank statement. So I always try to tell people, break things down into one little step at a time.
Yeah.
Get this done, move on. Get this done, move on. And then I'm here. It's not like you're going to give me your bank statement and sayonara,
Yeah,
sister.
fire
You
me,
got to
yeah.
figure the rest out. I closed a loan in January, and they were getting gift funds from a mother who lived in a different state, and she didn't have a lot of access to her phone for communication. It was just difficult. It was very workable, but it wasn't easy, to get all this stuff figured out. And we're getting closer to closing, and the gal is sitting in my office, and I can see a tear welling up, and I'm like, it's going to be okay.
Figure it out.
Like, I know I've been here before. I know what we need to do. Calm down. This isn't like, I'm not worried, so you don't need to worry.
Yeah.
Like, even if I was worried, I probably would have lied and been like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Put the fire out first.
yeah, but like small steps, there's a lot involved, and you can never start alone and warn a customer of everything. You can warn them about a lot of things, and we give them heads up on things not to do so that they don't have negative surprises. So maybe now is a good time to talk about some things that you shouldn't do during the loan process. So let's say that we've pulled your credit, we've gotten you pre-qualified, and you're out house hunting with Sean and Brittany, and you want to buy a new vehicle. Well, that's outstanding. And you probably can afford it, or maybe you need a different vehicle out of necessity. I'm not saying you can't buy a vehicle. I'm saying visit with your loan officer first.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you can wait until after the closing date, it is
Yes.
so
Yeah.
much more preferred.
Yeah.
I've had people who have said, well, my payment didn't change. And that's fine, and you can verbally tell me your payment didn't change, but we have to prove that. And if you've just purchased a vehicle and it's Wednesday and we're closing on a loan Friday, we have to get verifications, and those can take a while, especially for a new loan where paperwork might not be readily available. So there's just so many things to think about. We've had people who have finished one job and then moved on to another job, and they're like, well, I'm getting paid more. That shouldn't hurt anything. Absolutely, it doesn't hurt anything,
But now you got to restart the process.
but we have to verify everything. And it just happens so often where people will be like, well, this is better, so why do I have to do that? And we're not trying to make everybody's life
Well, and
miserable.
it's not always the hourly wage that matters, but sometimes people lose overtime.
Yes.
And when they lose overtime, that's a huge hit
It's
on
a huge hit.
Or you have to have so many months or something of
Yes.
the overtime for it to count.
This is a great point. I love it that you guys brought it up. Yes. So let's say this is common. Let's say you worked at To Go to Provisions for 10 years and you were paid a base salary or a base wage, and then you also got $2,000 a month in overtime, and then you moved and now you work at Jack Links and you have a higher base and you're going to get some overtime, but that overtime hasn't been worked yet. You have to be employed at a job for 12 months before we can count that overtime.
Yeah.
So I've had that reset several people's clocks.
Yeah.
When they switched that job, getting a higher wage on an hourly, but they lost all that overtime that they were getting.
Yes.
It really hurts.
It really does hurt. Another thing is second jobs or secondary or seasonal income. So we've had people we have people who work at one job and then they have a side gig, or let's say this is a true example. I have a gal who she worked at one of the fast food places in town. She worked there for a long time, 6 years or so. And that job was terrific for her. And she did a really good job with it. And then she got a different position it was in an office. It was like a Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. Now, she was guaranteed wages at her new job. She was a salaried employee, and she was going to continue working at the fast food restaurant. And she's like, yeah, with both of these jobs, I'm going to be able to afford this much house. And you really would think that in your mind, you're like, of course, she's worked there for so long. You have to, depending on the loan program, you have to work both of those jobs for at least a year before we can count income from both of those positions.
Especially, I know I've had it with you where a part-time job,
Mm-hmm.
even though it's steady,
Mhm.
it doesn't, like I've had it with the school and stuff, like it's a steady job. There's, like, I run my own job hard.
Uh-huh.
Like there's not a big chance of me getting fired, and it caused issues. But
Yep.
the nice thing that I've learned though, with working with you, with working with another lender before, there's usually another option for something. Like,
Yes.
there's usually, okay, this is what sucks, but if we do this path over here, we'll get back to this
Yes.
in the end.
Yes. And so that's why it's great to work with someone local
Yes.
as opposed to
Every day.
your Rocket Mortgage or what's that VA one? The silly VA.
Oh, there's enough.
I know. These people don't know you. They don't have time for you. So if they can't get you pre-qualified for what you've contacted them for, you're denied, you're out the door, they're moved on to something else.
Right.
Yeah.
Where locally, and especially at American Bank and Trust, we're going to help you make a plan so that you can achieve home ownership, so that you can upgrade your home. We're going to help you figure that out. And anyone local, and I'm speaking for other people, and I think that they're going to be fine with it, but anyone local is going to have options for you,
Right.
not just their one loan program.
Yeah.
So, and I promise you, every local institution is going to be very competitive on interest rates, on all of it. So, if you think I'm going to save a ton of money on interest by going to Rocket Mortgage, you're usually not, because their fees, they'll make you pay for an appraisal up front. We don't make anyone do that. They can pay for their appraisal at closing.
Right.
There's so many things that they make you do that's just goofy.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially from our side.
The other thing that I've always found interesting is that if you are in the market to buy a house and one lending institution tells you no, maybe they have very good reasons to tell you no.
Right.
But there might be another one that will tell you yes.
Right.
You just have to do these certain things and we'll get you there.
Yeah.
So it's always good if need be to get two opinions
Right.
on how things could look.
So you're not wrong. And I appreciate what you just said. It made me think of something though. So we have people who will call and say, yeah, what are your interest rates for home loans? Oh boy.
Yeah.
That's like asking, how much does a car cost? So I mean, you can buy a car for 30,000.
Yeah.
So if I tell you, well, a car is usually about 30,000, and then you go get $30,000 and you say, I would like to purchase that Lamborghini. Well, that ain't gonna get you a Lamborghini.
No.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
or I want to buy that brand new pickup. It's not gonna get you a brand new pickup.
No.
And people will always say, well, can't you just give me a ballpark? Well, sure, I can give you a ballpark, but they don't realize how big the ballpark is.
Well, and 0.5% makes a huge difference.
It really does, especially, so let's say that American Bank and Trust has a full application from you. We know your credit score. We know your debt to income ratio. We know the property that you're interested in. We know how much of a down payment you have. We know all of these things. And then you call bank 2, and you just say, hey, what's your interest rate? You know, American Bank and Trust said that they'll give me this, but what's yours? They don't have any of that information, so they can give you a range, but like, let's say that I've got you pre-qualified to purchase $1 million home in let's say Denver. I've got you pre-qualified and I've given you an interest rate, and then you call bank B and you're like, yeah, I want to buy a house. What's your rate? Well, that bank might not offer a jumbo loan for one,
Yeah.
which we do. They might not lend out of state for 2, which we do. And they don't know your credit. There's so many unknowns. So while it is good, it's good to shop around. It's good to compare. You have to give everybody a fair shot.
Yeah.
So
The
if
same
you,
info
yes.
across.
So if you don't want to fill out 2 or 3 applications, it's really not worth calling and asking, because they're not going to be able to give you comparable numbers.
Right.
Yeah.
They're going to be able to give you a guesstimate, which truthfully is worth nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
I always tell people, like, try and start if you are happy with your local bank. Like,
Yes.
start there, because they're going to be able to easily pull a little bit more information. They have you.
Sure.
They already have that
But they
relationship.
know your history.
Yeah, they know you
Yeah.
more than just going to a new bank that you don't know in town, that you don't know anybody. So, like, that's a good first step.
Yes.
And I'm like, if something doesn't click right, if something doesn't like that, there's other options. But that's your easiest first place to go.
Yes. And so another thing that I like to tell people is, if you're going to listen to someone else about, or like take advice from them on where to go, ask them about their experience.
Yeah.
You know, like, because experiences can be compared where numbers cannot be.
Yeah.
A
Right.
really good example. Okay, guys, I'm just blabbering here.
You're good.
Okay.
We love it.
Is this what you intended?
Yeah.
Yes.
They're like, whoo, note to self, don't ask Jake to come back.
No, we love it.
Okay, so I had this actually happened in Miller. So a guy purchased a property in Miller in 2020 when interest was like nothing.
Mhm.
And he, 2 years later, 3 years later, he went to go sell his house, and he's like, yeah, my payment is $1,000 a month. So, you know, if you can afford $1,000 a month, I'll sell you my house. So the buyer calls me and she's like, well, yeah, he bought this house and he said he pays $1,000 a month for it. So I want to buy his house.
Oh,
Oh boy.
Quite a difference,
Oh.
probably.
That's
yeah.
where, like, you might want to take lending advice
Yeah.
from the
Right.
seller.
And I'm like, yeah, that's not how that works. Oof, Dita, and I wish it did. You know, like, I wish that I could give you the same rate that I gave that person, but we aren't we don't set rates on our
Yeah.
side. You know, like, that has to do with the secondary market and the big ball of wax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one thing I would also point out is that I personally, in my home buying, I've never used any sort of loan program, because I bought my first house was a flip house. And a lot of times with any of these loan programs, they require you have, you know, it has to be a certain state. You know, you can't have, ripped out walls or anything like that.
Right.
So
Yes.
the
house has to. So not only does the borrower have to qualify, but the
house
has to qualify.
So
as well.
I've actually never used any of those, and
Yep.
I bought a flip house. Was my first house that I bought, and then we transitioned. We sold that, and we bought another house, and we fixed that one a little bit, and we've made money, and we've just used the down payment. So
Yes.
it really is like we're talking about. It's situational. How
Yes.
it works for your situation, and if you want to buy that $60,000 house that you can stick $40,000 in and have a nice pad when you go to sell it, a nice amount of equity in it. That's a different avenue to go down.
It sure is. Yes.
But
yes.
that's the nice thing too is speaking with American Bank and Trust, I'm sure other lenders are like this too. Like you do residential, there's someone right there doing commercial and you guys work great together.
Yes.
And that's nice too. So like talk to one of your lenders and be like, okay, I want to buy this flip house. I want to do this. I want to do this and this and this and rent it out. That might be commercial. Like, let's figure out your plan. And that's
Yes.
great to work together.
And it sure is. And so residential lending is what I do. And so that is properties that are 1 to 4 units. So if like Brittany, if you wanted to buy a duplex, I don't know what you call them for sure.
Yeah.
And it has 4 apartments in it. Like it's one home.
Quadplex.
Quadplex, yes. And it's one home and it has 4 units. I can help you with that. If it's a building that's got 6, then I need to have you speak with Ben Nelson, who is our commercial loan officer. Now, let's say that you have single family homes and you've bought in a couple, you've got them rented out, and I've helped you with the first few. Well, now you're up to like you've got 15 homes. There is a point where we do have to transition you over to a commercial lender, and it all has to do with you can have certain investors will let you have so many properties financed at a time. And then once you go over a magic number, they can't do anymore. Other investors are like, you can only have so much of your net worth tied up in investment properties before they don't let you do anymore. So lots and lots and lots of stuff. And no one is expecting the buyer to know this stuff, So people will say, I've got a really stupid question. No, you don't.
There is no such thing.
There is no
I've heard
such
it 6
thing.
times.
Yes, like that. No.
Actually, that is a very common question. A lot of times people would say.
And people, it's a very common way to start a conversation too. Is what you think is a stupid question. It's totally not.
No.
Or people will say, I'll get 2 phone calls from them in the same day, and they'll be like, "I'm so sorry to bother you." No, bother me.
Right.
I'd rather have you ask than assume.
I would rather get 5 phone calls from you and have you know what's going on.
Exactly.
And feel comfortable knowing what's going on.
Exactly.
Than not hear from you and say at the end of it, I was so confused the whole time.
Yeah.
Because that's not what anybody wants.
No.
Right.
Especially with a big purchase like a house.
Yeah. And people might think, well, I'm buying a house and it's only $60,000. Well, I'm sorry, but I think $60,000 is a lot of money.
Yeah.
I don't have that on me.
Right.
Yeah.
If I was gonna give someone $60,000, I think that's a pretty big deal.
That was great. Yes. 100%.
So no purchase is unimportant because of the dollar amount.
No.
Like they're all important.
Absolutely.
So kind of down that line, you kind of mentioned earlier, like it's kind of like you're competing against other banks. Not competing, but
yes,
you know what I mean. They're not with you making your money type.
Right.
So you have a base salary, but you still have to work for every single
for sure.
purchase. So if you're out here promoting yourself just like us,
yes.
You're getting your name out there. You're on social media. You're trying to support us a lot because you want them too. So that's what's kind of nice, and I think that's a good aspect because it makes you work harder.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying when you're choosing a realtor or a lender, definitely talk to people about their experiences.
Yeah.
If your loan officer, if you could never get a hold of them, if they were never answering your questions, like those are pretty big deals.
Yeah. You don't show up and work 8 to 5 and just go lock yourself in your office and not talk to people. collect a
And-
paycheck.
and
You
I would
actually
say-
have to.
Yes.
What-
As a real estate agent, my biggest pet peeve is when people don't respond to you, like
Right.
lenders or
Okay.
whoever it is. And we have a very good group in here, and I don't have that problem. It's
Yeah.
when we get outside of
Yeah.
the state that we seem
Even-
to run into
yes,
issues.
Even outside of like a big corporation, even if it's in Sioux Falls and they have someone in Sioux Falls, but it's like a Rock and Mortgage or something
Right.
totally different. That is so hard because
It
you're
is.
like, I can't just see you today.
Yep.
I can't swing by and be like, what's going on?
Even for us, so we've had people who purchased their home with Rocket Mortgage, and then when it came time to refinance or whatever, they've contacted us, and even getting payoffs from them is rotten. It's the worst experience.
Yeah.
I feel like everybody also gets pre-approved with Rock and Mortgage. They
Uh-huh.
say yes to every single
Until
person.
you get 2 weeks into a
until-
contract.
Yeah, until you get committed to that house, until you get your house listed to buy this house, and then it's like,
Oh,
Oh,
now
they're
we're
like,
actually gonna-
you actually have a car payment?
Oh,
No.
yeah. And I didn't look at that first because I just wanted to get you this prequel letter
Exactly.
Mhm.
I was like, what?
and live off of
No.
a hope and a
Yeah.
prayer.
Yeah, we're against Rock and Mortgage. here,
Yeah.
You know?
I am
Sorry,
too.
Rock and Mortgage. This is
And-
not sponsored.
And I'm not gonna. One thing about yes, like so I do have competition in town. It's very friendly
Yeah.
competition.
Yeah.
I had a gal, and she'll hear this, I'm sure. And she texted. Well, she called me first, and then texted me. This was just yesterday. We compare notes. We want to know what all of us are up on what's going on in the community. And another thing too is that none of us are going to price ourselves out of the market. So if we know that the bank down the street is offering a program where they have 1% lower interest, if it's possible at all, we're going to match that. So you can shop around locally, but you're not going to find an institution
Same
who is
things.
way far out of the
Right.
realm of everyone else. Like
Yeah.
that. It doesn't make sense. We're all getting our money from the Fed. All of us are.
Yeah.
And we can only, well, no, not from the Fed. So I don't even want to get into that discussion.
No,
But
yeah.
we are all getting money from another place, and we all have to get that money. We have to pay a price to get that money to give it to you.
Yeah.
So no one's going to price themselves out of the market. We might have specials and things like that, but definitely go off of your experience, and listen to, so if your friend used me and she had a great experience, even if you don't know me, give me a call. You might have the same experience,
Yeah.
Right.
And so that's something that I've tried very hard, and I've worked very hard on it, is, I've been around a long time. I feel like I've lived through a lot, not everything, but I do feel like at American Bank and Trust, we've got so much experience, and we've made a lot of people happy. We know about things that can come up. We're going to prepare you for that, so you don't have this rotten experience.
Exactly. Like everything's different, but there's also like things that seem to always happen.
Yes.
throughout. So
Okay.
yeah.
And
So
just when you think you have seen everything, though,
something new comes.
It slaps you right in the face,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
I remember last summer sitting at the car wash waiting in line, and I was happy to do it because I just wanted to sit there.
Yeah.
And I was talking to my underwriter on the phone, and she's like, I just can't believe this. I've never seen this before. And literally, this was like the 4th conversation we had had last summer about things we hadn't seen before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, put them, that's just stuff in our
Right.
arsenal that
Yeah.
we can say, yep, we've had this happen. I know what to do.
Yeah.
Yep. That is
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Isn't that the truth?
Yep.
Yes.
So, is there any like lending questions? Like, what's one major question that people always seem to come to you that they don't know?
Okay, so we have talked about some of the bigger things. So things about, well, I can tell you this is what's going on, or this improved my situation. One of the biggest things that people are generally always shocked by is we have to prove everything to someone who is not talking to you. So even if it's our local senior lending committee, like if we're going to keep a loan in-house because it doesn't fit one of our investors, we still have to prove things. So you can explain things, and your parents can explain things, but we have to prove things. One thing that we see, well, I'm going to talk about this because it's tax time. When we have self-employed borrowers, they might make a huge amount of money every year, but they only want to let the tax man know about a little portion of it. And that makes a lot of sense. And you work with a financial planner or a tax advisor, and they give you advice, and they tell you, let's just let the tax man know about this little piece of it. Well, and then when you go to pay the tax man, that works out great.
Yeah.
Well, when you go to buy a home 2 years later,
Goodbye to the butt.
and we need
Right.
to prove that you make money, we can't. The only way that we can prove self-employed income is through tax returns that have actually been submitted to the IRS. And even if you have $1 million in the bank, if you need to borrow money, we need to prove that you have the ability to repay. That's actually a federal rule, and that's what's called ability to repay. So if you have $1 million in the bank, well, if you don't intend on using that $1 million to purchase a home, we got to know where the money's going to come from to
Right.
purchase the home. So tax returns are always, they can be tricky. You can have someone sitting across the table from you who you know is worth millions, and you could deny them for a $40,000 loan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's hard.
It
And
is hard.
That's also what people don't see in your case. You do not get to look at everybody's situation and story and numbers and say yes, no, yes, no.
Right.
It sucks.
People might call, I've banked with American Bank and Trust for 30 years. And while we appreciate that relationship immensely, we can't change the investors' rules.
Right.
We have some more flexibility with our in-house programs, which we have an array of.
And you can find a different program that you
Yes,
might
but
help.
we have to prove, if you want a 30-year fixed mortgage with a low interest rate, we have to prove things. And if we're asking you for bank statements, we're not asking you for those statements so that we can scan them and put them on Facebook.
Yeah.
You know, we're
Yeah.
asking you for them because we need to prove something to someone else. And
It's always like, darn it, she's gonna see how much I went to Scooters.
no, I don't look
She,
at it.
she finds the big things. Yeah,
Yep.
she's not calculating me like, did you know? You
Yes.
spent $75 at Scooters.
I don't look at that.
No.
I never. And honestly, even so, like,
Oh, it flashes by. You wouldn't remember if you did see it one time.
if I did, it would never stick with me. But another thing too is I'm not here to personally judge.
No.
I'm here to make a credit decision. That's what I'm interested in. You know, like, I want to see you in that fabulous house.
Yeah. You
Right.
want to
You know?
see everybody succeed. Like for
Yes.
your livelihood and stuff with your job, but also because I know you're a great person. You want everybody.
Aw, thanks,
Yeah,
Brittany.
you could be like, yes, yes, yes to everybody.
I
and
would,
you would get fired.
but at the
But
same
so you
time,
can't do that.
at the same time,
Yeah.
if someone comes to me and they're and I know that they're barely gonna be able to make this payment, I don't want that for them
Or
either.
to go through it all, like, to get to the end. Like, it's sometimes easier to not,
You don't
like, to
want
kind of start saying no in the beginning
Yeah.
or be like, let's wait till this. This is what you need to do to
Yes.
get.
you might want
point of
that
buying a
expensive
house.
house, but
Yeah.
you might also be setting yourself up for failure.
Failure.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
that's what you're trying to help people avoid.
Avoid.
Yes.
Yes, is okay. Yes, you might be able to just scrape by in this brand new house that you just built, but what about when the taxes become fully assessed and then you
Yeah.
can't afford it? Like, no, that I don't
Yeah.
want that. You guys don't want that.
Now you gotta pick between your home loan and groceries and everything else, because
Yeah.
everything else will continue going up. So
Yes.
Mhm.
you don't want to
Yeah.
stick yourself. in
That's another thing too. So, gosh, guys, how
We can
long
talk
have we
about
been doing this? 3 hours? Sorry.
Yeah.
So another thing too, and this is why realtors and lenders need to be involved. You have to have a team involved that's working for you. A house will get listed. You'll have someone call and say, "Yeah, I want to put in an offer on this house. They're asking 400, but that house ain't worth 400." Oh gosh. Oh gosh.
We
I'm gonna offer them
topics.
320.
Yeah.
Well, and you sure can, and that is up
And you
to
don't
you.
get what you ask.
No.
Don't ask for, but
But visit with a realtor when you
Yeah.
submit that offer. And I tell people, you can sure do that. Have a conversation with your realtor first. They'll help you with that. There might be some cases, they're very few and far between, where a home that's listed with a realtor is out of range. It happens. I'm just going to tell you, it doesn't happen often.
Not
No.
very often.
If a home is listed with a realtor, it's priced accordingly because the realtor wants to sell that house. They aren't going to be just way off the wall with this house. It's never going to sell. No one wants that.
Yes. It looks.
It doesn't benefit
Yeah,
the seller.
doesn't help
It doesn't
us, no.
benefit the agent. It
It
doesn't
doesn't
help the
benefit
buyer.
anyone.
No.
Also, most realtors know that people are going to need financing. They're going to need to have an appraisal done on that property. And if the house doesn't appraise, everything's going to fall by the wayside
Yeah.
anyway. So all your work is for nothing. If there's a house that's listed and it's been listed for one day and you offer them considerably less, you're kind of wasting people's time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's gonna suck.
so if you can't afford the full ask, don't even go down that
Yeah.
path.
Correct.
Don't be. Sometimes I try to like, oh, this person wants 125. I'll send you a 130 house, but
Sure.
it's like I'm not going to send you a 200
No,
house because
no.
that's way too far.
Way
But-
too far.
Way
Yeah.
too far.
especially when it is, like I said,
And
just
even
listed.
if the buyer thinks it's overpriced, somebody's done their homework to figure out what
Yes,
it's worth.
yes,
Somebody has
yep.
done that homework.
And we can do the homework too. Like you list the house, you did a CMA. I could also run my own CMA.
You could.
Yes.
on it, and I
Absolutely.
can sit there and be like, "Yep, Sean's right."
Yeah.
Yep.
It doesn't happen often with Sean.
It doesn't. It doesn't happen often where any realtor prices a house ridiculously.
No.
It just doesn't.
Yeah.
So if you see the $600,000 and $700,000 houses that are listed in Huron, it's a thing.
Yeah,
It's
it
a
happens.
thing.
Try building it.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
And also don't think that, well, Huron can't have those homes. Yes, they can.
Absolutely. And
Huron's
we
terrific.
sell them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's all I'm doing here is and. Another thing too is like, so that house might not have been worth that 5 years ago, but generally in this area, real estate appreciates in value.
Right.
So it is worth that now, and if you weren't thinking, or if you were thinking you wanted to buy years ago, but you were waiting for values to come down, I just don't see that
I don't
happening in
either.
our market.
Mm-mm.
Like we said, if interest rates come down, housing market goes up. It's a whole game. So sometimes
And even with interest rates
They
being
do.
higher, though, the prices have not dropped.
They have
No,
not.
They've
They've stayed
remained
steady.
very stable.
yeah, I was like, if interest rates come down, though, like there's gonna be more houses on.
But if you look at the market in Huron, there's
Right.
maybe 20 houses available, maybe
Yeah.
on any given day in
Yes.
Huron.
And there are more than 20 people looking to purchase a house right
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Yes. And it helps because if you buy that home, it's good peace of mind to know that in 2, 3, 4 years, that home will be worth more.
Yeah, it is.
You are truly building wealth.
Yep.
We love it. We love having you on.
Yeah,
we
well,
love
and we appreciate
Yeah.
having on.
this.
Yeah.
I think lending conversations we could talk
Oh my
20 more
gosh.
hours
Oh, yeah.
and still not cover it.
We could do this
Yeah.
once a quarter. My goodness. Yes.
Yeah.
And I do kind of love it how you guys just kind of let me spew
Oh, yeah.
all this.
But Sean
This
said
is
in the
great.
beginning and stuff, he's gonna smack me for saying this, but he's like, "You don't have to talk much today because I think Jamie's gonna control the conversation."
Well, I think,
Because I was like, we
But-
don't know what to ask.
but
because you see
seriously,
it.
with a
Yeah.
mortgage banker, I mean,
Yes.
you have
Oh,
you
yeah.
have so much that you can talk about.
That's
Yes.
where I was like,
mean,
we gave you the kind of direction, like we need to talk about lending, and we let
And
it
I-
take off because we're like, we see the, hey, we got a purchase agreement. Here you go. Good luck with
And-
that one.
And like Brittany
Yeah.
just said, we just touched the tip of the iceberg.
Yes.
I mean, this
Yeah.
is
Yes.
this
we-
is not anything compared to
and
what the process
we've
actually
been
looks
in
like.
the other side where we are the ones working with the lender for our
Yes.
personal stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
And like I've seen it construction wise, renting wise, buying wise, whatever you're doing commercial wise. And it's different every time. And
Different
we don't
every
know
time.
it. Even when we're doing it, it's like there's still something new that I didn't realize you could do that.
Yeah,
and I'm the
right.
person, I don't even care. Just get me to the finish line.
Yep. Like,
Yeah.
let me know when you need my help.
Yeah.
Yep. We know what you need and we'll get it. So
No, I love it. I totally love it. I feel like Claudia Austri on the toast. And if anybody knows what I'm talking about, like,
Yeah.
so parched.
yeah.
Well, thank you
We love
for
having you
coming
on.
today. We really
Yeah,
appreciate
thank
it.
you guys.
Yeah.
This was fun.
Yeah.
This was
Yeah.
terrific.
We'll have you back.
Absolutely.
I'll gladly come back
Good.
and keep on with my and.
Good. Well, that's how we'll start. And we're back.
And we're back.
Yeah.
Yes, I love it.
Yes,
All right.
thank
Well,
you
thank you all
guys.
for joining us.
Yes, take care. See ya.
And remember, who you work with matters.